Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. This is Paul Tagliabue. He was the commissioner of the NFL for a decade and a half, and he had some good ideas for the league. Under him, there was never any work stoppage or lockout, ensuring that every year, each team had an opportunity to play a full season to win a piece of metal. He helped grow the game internationally, placing the first regular season game outside of the United States with the Cardinals-49ers game in Mexico City, and placing preseason games in countries that never had an NFL game before, such as Australia, Ireland, Spain, and Germany. And he was able to usher in a new era of NFL expansion, which is something that Pete Rozelle, his predecessor, tried to do throughout the late 70s and 1980s, but couldn't get off the ground. Tagliabue is a Hall of Famer, and he had a lot of good ideas. This was not one of them. In fact, this idea was incredibly stupid. In an attempt to increase the dying ratings of Monday Night Football, Tagliabue had an idea that he publicly stated on Inside the NFL. The only problem? This idea was terrible. It made no sense whatsoever, it seemed to be an idea that benefited absolutely no one, and it would have destroyed the fabric of Monday Night Football forever, completely altering the program as we knew it, and not in a good way. And this is the story behind the stupidest idea in the over half-century-long history of Monday Night Football. Before I talk about the idea in question, we need some context to understand why Paul Tagliabue was so concerned and felt the need to make a change. The old saying is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, while this applied to Monday Night Football in the mid-90s, when the ratings were through the roof, by the 2000s, this wasn't the case anymore. The ratings that the program was pulling were somewhat worrisome. In 1994, Monday Night Football was at its peak. It was the fifth most watched program in the country that year and pulled a 17.8 Nielsen rating. To put that number into perspective, it had a higher rating than any program on Fox and CBS did that year, and was ahead of programs such as Roseanne, 60 Minutes, and even Friends. But after that, the ratings started to bleed. The Nielsen rating dipped every year from 1994 on, all the way up until 2002, when it reached an all-time low of 11.4. By 2002, Monday Night Football was now only the 8th most watched program in the country. It was as high as 3rd back in 1999. And the NFL and ABC tried a variety of different things to increase the ratings. They brought in comedian Dennis Miller to spice up the broadcasting booth. It didn't work. They tried broadcasting things from the ESPN zone. It even tried a musical halftime show. It didn't work. The ratings continued to decrease, and nothing seemed to be working, even when they brought in the top announcing duo there was with Al Michaels and John Madden. There were a variety of reasons that the ratings dipped, from the saturation of television, to increased entertainment options in the form of the internet, to the fact that Sunday Ticket made it easy to watch any team you wanted to at the time, meaning that Monday Night Football was no longer your one shot to watch an out-of-market team, to the fact that Monday Night Raw was skyrocketing in popularity. Whatever the case, whether it was just one thing or a combination of things, everyone knew that there was a major problem on their hands that needed fixing. And that's when Commissioner Paul Tagliabue hatched up an idea. One of the problems with Monday Night Football in recent years was the fact that you had games that were either not competitive, or you had games that were between bad teams or had no implication on the playoff picture. Let's take the 2002 season, where the ratings were at their all-time low. There were 17 games that took place on Monday Night Football that year. Of those 17 games, just 3 of them were decided by one possession. You had a 49ers-Seahawks game in Week 6, a Bears-Rams game in Week 11, and a Raiders-Jets game in Week 13. That was it. Just under 18% of the games on Monday night in 2002 were decided by one possession. Obviously, better games typically produce better ratings. If a game is a blowout, eyeballs tune away. And in 2002, you had some games that featured bad teams or were completely meaningless, and these games could not be flexed out or changed. In Week 17, you have the 10-5 San Francisco 49ers, who had clinched the NFC West and had locked up their number 4 seed in the NFC, taking on the 6-9 St. Louis Rams, who were eliminated. Neither team had anything to play for. In Week 14, you had a Monday Night Football game involving the Chicago Bears, who were 3-9 and were mathematically eliminated by that point. The Bears were also involved in a Monday night game in Week 11 where they entered at 2-7, and were taking on a Rams team that was below 500. This was a problem that plagued Monday Night Football for years, and really came to light with the declining TV ratings. With that, Tagliabue thought back to 1997, when a bizarre scenario forced the NFL to play 2 games on Monday night right up against each other. On October 27, 1997, the Green Bay Packers took on the New England Patriots in a rematch of Super Bowl 31. To date, this is the first and only time that a Super Bowl rematch ever took place on Monday Night Football. But on that day, the Chicago Bears also took on the Miami Dolphins down in Miami, with that game being shown locally. The game was originally scheduled for Sunday, but because the Florida Marlins were in the World Series, and because they needed the stadium for their iconic Game 7 victory the night before, the game had to be moved to Monday night. And Tagliabue thought to himself, What if we did that every week? What if we played 2 Monday night games every single week? By doing this, ABC would have options to pick which game they wanted to air, and could potentially switch to a different game if it was a blowout. And Tagliabue decided that the way to fix Monday Night Football was to double the number of games being shown. There was just one small problem with this proposal. If you even think about it for more than 5 seconds, Paul Tagliabue's idea stunk. As you can probably tell right off the bat, there are many, and I mean many problems with this proposal, and just how stupid it is. Number one, and perhaps the most glaringly obvious problem, why the heck would CBS and Fox agree to this? 1 year before this proposal, in 2002, Tagliabue proposed the idea of flex scheduling on Monday Night Football, where at the end of the season, roughly somewhere around the final 4 weeks, the NFL would have the option to take a Sunday game and move it to Monday night if the Sunday game was attractive, or if the Monday game was a dud that had no playoff implications whatsoever. That idea posed its own set of problems. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But CBS and Fox threw fits over that, and that was the main reason why the proposal never went through. And keep in mind, that was for just the possibility that CBS or Fox could lose a marquee game. It might not have happened. There might not have been a single game that wound up getting flexed. Heck, CBS and Fox might not have even lost a game in the grand scheme of things. I could have easily seen a situation under this where if the NFL wanted to flex a game into Monday night, and the original Monday night game had an AFC team on the road, that they had to flex in a Sunday game with an AFC team on the road. And the same thing if an NFC team was on the road, just so that the numbers are even, and CBS and Fox still wind up showing the exact same number of games that they were supposed to. Remember that cross-flexing between the networks, while somewhat commonplace today, was not a thing back in the 2000s. And Tagliabue, being the genius that he is, genuinely thought to himself, gee, the network sure didn't like it when I threatened to shake up 1 week of their season. Let's shake up all 16 weeks. CBS and Fox threw a fit when Tagliabue even mentioned the idea of taking away one of their games, even if there was a strong possibility that the flex never would have been implemented, and even if it would have been replaced by a different game. Now, Tagliabue wanted to take away a minimum of 16 games guaranteed with no strings attached. On what planet was Tagliabue living on when you put it in that historical context from not even 1 year before? But don't worry, this idea gets even worse from a logistical standpoint. Aside from the obvious problems that this poses for the other networks, how does this benefit ABC in the slightest bit? Putting on any NFL game is an expensive endeavor. You need a play-by-play man, you need a color commentator, you need a production truck, you need a crew to run cameras and everything in the truck, you need a graphics team, you need equipment, you need a sideline reporter, you need the whole 9 yards. And especially for Monday Night Football, you're paying top dollar for this. Al Michaels and John Madden don't come cheap. Now Tagliabue was going to ABC and saying, hey, you know this program that's been struggling in the ratings and might be bleeding money for you guys to an extent? I know how we're going to fix this. Let's double the production costs. There's throwing money at the problem, and then there's this. With this proposal, ABC was now going to have to hire 2 of everything. Why on earth would ABC want to do that? Plus, I'm going to propose a very real hypothetical scenario. Back in the 2000s, blackout rules were still in place, meaning that if a game was not sold out, then the game could not be televised in the team's home market. I talked about blackout rules in a previous video of mine, so you can learn more about that and the details of the blackout by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Let's say in this hypothetical that you have a late season matchup in Arizona between the Cardinals and the Jaguars. Now, the Cardinals blacked out pretty much every game back then when they played at Sun Devil Stadium. Let's say that this game gets blacked out, meaning that the game is only being televised in Jacksonville. You just asked ABC to double their production costs so that they could show a game exclusively in one of the smallest TV markets that has an NFL team. That's just stupid. On top of having to deal with that, you'd likely have to rework the contracts of Al Michaels and John Madden, and I don't know if they'd want to do that. Part of the reason why Madden came to ABC for Monday Night Football was because it was the first time in his career that he would be showcased in front of a national audience, and he wanted that. While he was the marquee color commentator at CBS and Fox for 2 decades, unless it was a playoff game, you weren't hearing his voice in a regular season game across 100% of the country. Tagliabue wanted ABC to sweep the rug out from under the greatest and most iconic color commentator of all time and say, remember the thing that lured you to Monday Night Football more than anything else? Well, you can't do that anymore. Sorry. I'm sure that would go over well. But don't worry, the more you think about it, the more this idea somehow gets even worse. Perhaps the funniest part about this entire proposal is that there was a pretty strong chance that certain weeks, the ratings would actually be worse than if they aired just 1 game. Here's a very real hypothetical taking the New York market. Let's say there are 2 Monday Night Football games airing that week. One of them is a battle between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants are having an amazing season, and this game between the Eagles and Cowboys is huge, because if the Eagles win, then the Giants clinch the division. The other one is a game involving the New York Jets, who are not very good and are in the cellar, officially eliminated from playoff contention. New York and its secondary markets are obligated to show the Jets game. However, by doing this, New York would probably draw a lower TV rating than they would if they just aired the Eagles-Cowboys game. That's just one example, but there are plenty of other times where by doing this, the ratings would be worse, and all it cost ABC was a doubling of their production costs. The situation also creates a scheduling nightmare. Remember that 1 month before, on November 4th, 2003, NFL Network officially launched, and Tagliabue was already working on ways to possibly bring a package of games over there so that more cable companies would carry the network, and so that it would be worth more. Let's say you have 8 teams on a bye, a Thursday night game on NFL Network, a Sunday night game on ESPN, and 2 Monday night games on ABC. That leaves just 8 games on Sunday to divvy up between the 2 networks, which puts you in a 1993 situation all over again, where one of the main problems with the 2 bye-week system and how poorly implemented it was the fact that there were weeks where you had a small number of games on Sunday, which also contributed to the ratings going down. This idea by Tagliabue would have brought back that disaster from a scheduling perspective, which obviously is not good. And on top of everything else, this significantly reduces the prestige and significance of Monday Night Football. Part of the appeal of playing on Monday night is the fact that you have the red carpet treatment. The whole country is watching. You get the top broadcasters, you get the top production team, you get to hear Hank Williams Jr. singing your name, and you have all the eyeballs in the football world on you. And now with this proposal, that's gone. Monday Night Football means nothing. No longer is it a truly national game. It dilutes the brand significantly by doubling the number of games as part of the package for no reason. This proposal, if it went through, would have been the end of Monday Night Football as we know it. With all that being said, as you can probably guess based off of how many horrible ideas come from this proposal never went through. Even though Tagliabue went public with the idea and openly stated how much he wanted to have 2 games on Monday Night Football, he seemed to be the only one to want it. CBS hated the proposal. Fox hated the proposal. ABC hated the proposal. This was one of those rare proposals that seemed to please absolutely no one. Not a single person or company came out on top here, and thus, the idea was shelved. ABC and the NFL would try and find new and creative ways to increase the ratings, one of which came the following year in 2004, when they tried a, let's just say, interesting cross-promotion between their show and Desperate Housewives. You can learn more about that on Godly Disaster by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Having said that, this was not the last time that Monday Night Football experimented with 2 games, although it would be in a radically different format that made a bit more sense. Beginning in 2006, when the rights to Monday Night Football went to ESPN, the network aired a doubleheader in Week 1, where one game would start at 7 o'clock Eastern, and the second game would start at 10:15 Eastern, with the second game usually featuring 2 West Coast teams. And in a few weeks, at the time of this video, there will be a doubleheader for Week 18 under the Monday Night Football brand, which will take place on the final Saturday of the season. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, a Sunday game between the Chiefs and the Patriots was moved to Monday night, going up against the Falcons-Packers game originally scheduled for that day. However, this is the only time in the ESPN era that 2 games took place on a Monday night at the exact same time. I think it's safe to say that it's a good thing that this proposal that Paul Tagliabue had in mind didn't wind up going through. There are so many things about it that were mind-numbingly stupid that I just don't see how the heck he ever thought this was a good idea. None of the networks would be happy. Fans would not be happy. Television executives would not be happy. Everything about this idea would have been a disaster in more ways than one. Because if Tagliabue had his way, all our rowdy friends would have been all over the place on Monday night. Get your official Jaguar Gamer 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes, link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9, and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.